Welcome back to Acme Classes Simply Accounts, a one-point channel to deal with all your problems relating to accountancy concepts in 11th and 12th. This is part 6 in a series of 6 videos dealing with how to prepare for your accountancy practical for the forthcoming board examinations. This video, which is part 6, deals with financial statements and comparative and common size statements. So let's begin. Now we will first deal with balance sheet. The important terms that need to be prepared for this chapter are: first, shareholders' funds. We've already talked about shareholders' funds in great depth in the previous videos dealing with ratio analysis. If you've not had a chance to look at our previous videos, please do find a link in the description below. Shareholders' funds is equal to share capital plus reserves and surpluses plus money received against share warrants. And like described before, children normally forget about money received against share warrants. Proceeding, reserves and surpluses. Now, there are 8 types of reserves and surpluses given in your syllabus. You need to know all of them, and that too in the specific sequence. They are capital reserves, capital redemption reserve, securities premium reserve, debenture redemption reserve, revaluation reserve, share options outstanding account or reserves, other reserves, and surplus, that is balance in the statement of profit and loss account, which is nothing but net profit. So you need to know all these reserves and surplus examples, and they are going to be for sure asked relating to the balance sheet. Next, we go on to current liabilities. What is a current liability? Normally children define current liability as a liability which is to be paid off within 12 months, and that's it. Well, that's not entirely correct. Let's have a look at the detailed definition of current liabilities. So current liability is the one which is expected to be settled in the normal operating cycle of the business. Number 1, it is primarily held for the purpose of being traded. Number 2, it is due to be settled within 12 months after the reporting date, that is the date of the balance sheet. So if I was to summarize the 3 points, current liability would be defined as a liability which is expected to be paid off within 12 months or the normal operating cycle of the business, whichever is later. There's another point added to it. Current liability is a liability of which the company does not have any unconditional right to defer payment for at least 12 months after the reporting date, that is the date of the balance sheet. Because if the company did have the right to defer the payment by more than 12 months, it will cease to be a current liability, it will become a non-current liability. Proceeding on, current assets. Likewise, current assets also are detailed in your book. So what are current assets? Current assets are assets which are expected to be realized or intended for sale or consumption in the company's normal operating cycle. It is primarily held for the purpose of being traded, and it is expected to be realized within 12 months after the reporting date. Now again, if I were to summarize the 3 points, current assets are assets which can be converted into cash or equivalents within 12 months or the normal operating cycle of the business, whichever is later. And it is not just capable of being converted into cash or cash equivalents. Current assets are also those which are either intended for sale or consumption in the company's normal operating cycle. So merely saying that current assets being assets which can be converted into cash is not entirely correct. Proceeding, there is another point added to these 3. Cash and cash equivalents, which are normally considered as current assets, cannot be treated as current assets if they are restricted from being exchanged or used to settle liability for at least 12 months after the reporting date or the date of the balance sheet. What do I mean by this? Well, if you have, for example, say 60,000 in your bank account and you cannot use it except to pay off a liability after 12 months of the reporting date, that means you cannot use it within the 12 months after the reporting date for financing the day-to-day operations of the business or running the business, then it ceases to be a current asset, it becomes a non-current asset. Proceeding further, intangible assets. All assets which do not have a physical existence but can be filled in the form of results are classified as intangible assets. And you need to know examples of intangible assets such as goodwill, most commonly used example, brands, trademarks, computer software, mastheads and publishing titles, mining rights, copyrights, patents and other intellectual property rights, recipes, formulas, models, designs, prototypes, licenses and franchise, and others. You need to know these examples for intangible assets because they can be asked in the Viva. Proceeding further, when is an asset classified as a non-current asset? This by far is the easiest definition of all. Any asset which is not a current asset is a non-current asset, or any asset other than a current asset is classified as a non-current asset. There can be land, buildings, plant and machinery, equipment, so on and so forth. Next, we shall deal with inventories. Inventories include raw materials, work in progress, finished goods, stock in trade in respect of goods acquired for trading. This is more specifically used in context of firms that buy goods from one person and sell to another. Stores and spares, loose tools, and others. So you need to know the examples of all these inventory types and their meaning. Next comes the most important topic, and that is deferred tax asset and a deferred tax liability. To understand the concept of deferred tax asset and deferred tax liability, you first need to understand the meaning of two terms, accounting income and taxable income. Accounting income is the income as calculated by the company for itself by its accountants at the end of each financial year, whereas taxable income is accounting income adjusted for tax rules as laid down in the Income Tax Act. To take an example of depreciation, if the firm has charged a depreciation rate of 60%, whereas the depreciation rate allowed by the Income Tax Act is 20%, clearly the accounting income will be less than the taxable income. Therefore, as a result, when accounting income is calculated and then taxable income has to be calculated to account for the provisos of the Income Tax Act, there's a difference between accounting income and taxable income. Now, if accounting income is less than taxable income, that means an income tax is calculated on the taxable income, you end up paying more tax than you hoped for. Therefore, if you pay more tax initially, you have to pay less tax afterwards. And as a result, it leads to the creation of something called a deferred tax asset. So, deferred tax asset is created when taxable income is greater than accounting income. Likewise, if accounting income is greater than the taxable income, in other words, if taxable income is less than the accounting income, you pay less tax initially but more tax later, leading to creation of something called a deferred tax liability. So a deferred tax liability situation is created when taxable income is smaller than accounting income. So let us come down to what comparative statements are. Comparative statements by their very name means comparing. When you compare two values to come at a certain conclusion. So, a comparative statement is a document or a statement used to compare a particular financial statement with prior period statements. Previous financial statements are presented along with the latest figures in a side-by-side column, enabling people or investors to identify trends, track the company's progress, and compare it with industrial rivals. To take an example, if I compare the previous year current assets with the current year current assets and the current assets have improved, I can find the percentage change, either increase or decrease, and come to my conclusions as the case may be. Proceeding, what is a common size income statement? A common size income statement is an income statement in which each line item is expressed as a percentage of value of revenue or sales. It is used for vertical analysis. Whereas comparative statements are horizontal analysis, common size statements are vertical analysis, in which each line item in a financial statement is represented as a percentage of a base figure, and in this case, the base figure is revenue from operations. Whereas in case of a common size balance sheet, each line item is represented as a percentage of the balance sheet total. So, to summarize, in part 1 of the video series, we basically dealt with what all you have to study for your accountancy practical. In part 2, we dealt with liquidity ratios and solvency ratios. In part 3, we dealt with turnover or activity ratios. In part 4 of the video series, we dealt with profitability ratios. In part 5 of the video series, we dealt with cash flow statements. And in the last part, that is part 6, we dealt with financial statements, comparative and common size statements, and the components therein. I hope all these 6 parts and this entire series helped you to summarize and prepare for your accountancy practical. We wish that we continue to provide good quality content in the future as well. If you've not had the chance to have a look at all the parts, the links for all of them are given in the description box below. If you like the work we do, please in the end do not forget to like, subscribe, share, comment and press the bell icon to receive future notifications regarding the videos uploaded. Thank you and good luck for your board exams.